Welcome to CBS 42's presentation of Veterans Voices, honoring those who serve. I'm Sherry Jackson, and we are at the National Veteran Shrine and Register of Honor at American Village in Montevallo.
I'm Jack Royer, and as we share the stories of veterans groups in Alabama, we will share the history, how one Alabama man's story is hailed as the red badge of courage of World War II. The memories, what a yellow Jeep, a Nikon, and a passion for storytelling are doing to preserve a vanishing generation. And the honor, keeping the camaraderie alive in a small shop near the Tallapoosa River.
In World War II, barriers were broken by the now famous Tuskegee Airmen, barriers that later integrated the military, then helped further the civil rights movement. The Air Force recently honored the group by introducing the new Red-Tailed T-7 trainer aircraft. But for the last 12 years, the honor of keeping the Red Tails flying in combat has fallen on the shoulders of the Alabama Air National Guard.
The best thing you can do to support the legacy of a military organization is to carry on the mission.
The mission of the Tuskegee Airmen began in the late 1930s with a decision to allow African American pilots to train for the Army Air Corps.
They proved that African Americans could do the job beyond just the menial labor that was previously being given to African American soldiers.
The challenge, however, didn't stop there. They paved the way for integration, acceptance, and now reverence.
It's because they were the first, and when they proved that they could do it, it opened up the doors of opportunity for the other groups that came after, not just African Americans, but women and other persons of color. It showed that valor and bravery doesn't have a skin color. It's what's in here.
In 2007, the wing commander of the 187th Fighter Wing, an Air National Guard unit in Montgomery, wanted to honor the airmen, changing the fighter squadron from the 160th to the 100th, one of the original squadrons of the Tuskegee Airmen.
The wing commander at the time thought it would be a great idea, since none of the original Red Tail squadrons were still flying fighters, that we should take on the Red Tail moniker and the Red Tail heritage.
The 100th will carry the Red Tail heritage into the next generation as well, right here in Alabama. The squadron is expected to begin flying new F-35 fighter aircraft soon.
To carry that on for the next 30 or 40 years in the F-35, keep doing the mission that they did back in World War II, that's the best thing we can do to support them and to support their memory.
The 187th and other National Guard units around Alabama are always in need of people willing to serve. To see what's available, go to ang.com.
And when we come back tonight, we'll tell you how a road trip and a mission are helping preserve the memories of the greatest generation. Stay with us. Saying thank you is sometimes difficult. You may not have the time, you may not have the right setting. But one Alabama man is on a mission to find the time and create the right setting, putting his own spin on saying thank you to America's greatest generation. For Dick and Gloria Paxton, retirement doesn't mean they aren't staying plenty busy.
Hello, Jack.
Married 14 years, or 162 months, as they say.
At our age, you don't count years, you count months.
They met at the Pelham Senior Center, each of them dancers.
I said, "You want to be my partner?" So that started us off. And
I said yes.
He said yes.
They met after lives lived separately and after Dick's years of military service in the Navy. Now,
looking very good.
That service being honored by Jeff Reese.
When did you join the Navy?
Who's found a new passion in telling Dick's story and dozens of others just like it, with portraits of honor.
This just kind of took off as a strong interest and then developed into a passion or calling.
He's taken portraits of over 50 veterans this year, and if a picture is worth 1,000 words, Reese hopes his are worth a few words themselves, like thank you for your service.
We don't have as many World War II veterans around. I'm trying to do as many as I can as soon as I can.
And will not retreat from that goal of honor and education.
World War II is almost a forgotten thing anymore.
And it's this photographer's goal to change that.
I'm no hero of war, the heroes didn't come home.
to let them know they're appreciated.
A small token of something I can give back what they've sacrificed.
It's all in a day's work to say thank you for a lifetime of service. If you would like to say thank you or preserve the memory of a veteran from any time in America's history, you can do it right here. The Veterans Register of Honor is a database where a record can be kept of their service.
When you visit, you can see the record, a video, and information relevant to their time of service. The registry is available online at veteransregisterofonor.com.
After the break tonight, we'll tell you how a professor from right here in Montevallo captured one of the most revered accounts of two bloody battles in the Pacific and how it helped generations afterward.
This room in the National Veterans Shrine is named after Eugene B. Sledge, a veteran of World War II who later became a professor here in Montevallo. He didn't rise to a high rank or serve his entire life. What he did brought the reality of war home to America, touching the nation and starting a conversation that continues to help years after his passing.
It was late December 1942, and Eugene Sledge, feeling a sense of duty, wanted to serve his country in World War II.
When World War II came along and he wanted to enlist in the Marine Corps, my grandfather was a physician, and he said, well, you've had malaria, you've got a heart murmur, there's no way the Marine Corps would take you. And my father very much wanted to be a part of the war effort, and he said, will you check me out and tell me if I'm okay?
Sledge was found medically fit to serve in the Marines, but it came with a stipulation: become an officer. He enrolled at Alabama's Marion Military Institute.
After leaving that, he went to Georgia Tech and was part of what I think they called it a V-12 program, and it was for young up-and-coming officers of college age. Meanwhile, the war effort overseas was rapidly getting underway in Europe and the Pacific.
Fearing they would miss out on combat and the ability to help the war effort, Sledge and his classmates intentionally failed out of the program at Georgia Tech, relegating them to the enlisted ranks, a status they were proud to hold.
And I can remember him saying that they were like literally a bunch of kids. They were singing and shouting and celebrating like they were on the way to summer camp. And I can remember him saying, if we'd only known what lay ahead.
What was ahead? Peleliu, and later, Okinawa, two of the bloodiest battles of the Pacific. Sledge was a mortarman for the 1st Marine Division, the Old Breed as they were called. From the moment they landed on the beach at Peleliu, the brutality of the war was right in their faces.
After collecting his wits, he stood up, and NCO was yelling at him, guys, get off the beach as quick as you can. He started trying to run off the beach as quick as he could. He got 10, 15 yards up the slant, right at the tree line, starting to work inland, and they all hit the deck for incoming rounds to take cover. And he looked over to the side and saw a pressure plate of what was actually a Japanese 500-pound aerial bomb that they had buried to effectively be a mine. And I remember him describing, he saw that and he knew immediately what it was. He's like, I just about stepped on that. And he happened to glance down the beach not far from him, and another Marine stepped on one and was just vaporized. After 32 days, I think my father was on Peleliu for 32 days. Finally, the 1st Marine Division, they pretty well had them boxed into, I can't remember how big the geographic area was, but they had them really crunched down to a pretty small area, but they were still having to go in and just route them out one cave at a time, with horrific loss of life to our guys.
Sledge emerged without a scratch from his 32 days on Peleliu and 90 days on Okinawa. He finished his service in China and returned home, where, like many, he had to figure out what to do with his future. College, marriage, and an eventual job teaching at the University of Montevallo. But Sledge still had a mission of his own to complete, a mission that would help him deal with everything he saw, a mission that started with a small Bible issued to him at the start of his service.
He wanted there to be some documentation of what he had seen. So all Marines were issued a New Testament Bible when going through basic training, and he began to, either on pieces of paper tucked in the margins of the Bible, or on certain pages he actually wrote an outline of certain things on the pages of the Bible itself. And that was the nascence of his written record.
In the 50s, Sledge was drawn to the notes he took during his service. Early in his marriage, he would stay up late and expand on them on legal pads. After reading the accounts, his wife offered to type the notes into a manuscript. Later, it would become a book with The Old Breed that was the basis for the HBO miniseries, The Pacific.
I think my dad sharing his story has been a great help. I hope it has. I know he would want it to be. And I say this with no pretension at all, but I do think it's been a help to people who have come home and suffered through PTSD. I know it has to guys who are in Vietnam.
The book has helped open conversations and give closure. Henry Sledge remembers a phone call from a man whose father served with Eugene Sledge and died in his arms, a story recounted in the book.
But this guy said to me on the phone, he said, "Your dad wrote about being with my dad when he died and describing the pine trees and how the sun was out. It was actually a fairly pretty day despite being in the middle of the Battle of Okinawa." And he said, I just got to tell you, I never knew my dad, but he said, that gave me a sense of peace. And he said, I've always wanted to reach somebody in your family and tell you how much I appreciate that.
Eugene Sledge passed away in 2001, but the legacy he left in telling his story has opened the door to an important conversation, a conversation that continues to help veterans today. For CBS 42, I'm Robert Sherman.
Coming up, we'll take you to a small garage in South Alabama where motorcycles are rebuilt along with the men who are working on them. Alabama's veteran suicide rate is tragically one of the highest in the nation, something the conversation about post-traumatic stress disorder and its effects is hoping to change.
And searching for what to do after retirement in a town where he only knew 5 people, Rob Dinsmore took on a new mission: bring to Alabama what he saw on a Facebook show called Returning the Favor. Producer Mark Hendren traveled to Tallahassee to share how rebuilding motorcycles has become hot rod therapy.
I've spent my whole life in service, whether it's service to my country, service as a volunteer firefighter and EMT, or just helping people out. So this gave me an opportunity to continue what I love doing, working on motorcycles, and also to help some of my buddies out and give them a place to come and forget about life for a couple hours each week.
Normally you turn the key on, the fuel pump runs for 3 to 4 seconds, and then you hit the button, the crank sensor tells it to come back on.
Right. Veterans, once you leave the service, you're looking for a place to reconnect, because you lose a sense of purpose in a lot of ways, and you lose the sense of camaraderie. So every veteran I know tries to find that camaraderie and that sense of purpose again. They should tell us what color wires the crank position is.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for.
So for me personally, what I get out of Operation Combat Bike Saver is I get a sense of accomplishment. You know, when you're used to accomplishing big things every day, it's when you wonder what your next sense of accomplishment might be. So I personally get a sense of accomplishment that I came here and I worked through all the issues that, you know, come with starting a nonprofit organization in a new place.
He walks into my shop one day and gave me a spill, and I was like, yeah, man, I'm in.
I got him with a free sticker.
Yeah, that's all it took. I was like, yeah, I'm in. It's a good cause, and I'm a veteran. I did 11 years in the Navy, and here we are.
What I'd like to see is I'd like to see 2 things. One, more veterans come out, because this program's completely free. It's no cost. We'll feed you. Once you earn your place in line, we'll provide a motorcycle for you to do your own motorcycle build, and we'll provide a $2,000 budget to do that build with. Alabama does have the highest veteran suicide rate in the country per capita. Right now, the veteran suicide rate's actually decreased a little bit in the last couple years. We've gone from 22 deaths a day down to about 20. But if you look at the per capita for Alabama, we're up at a little bit higher rate than that. And then as we increase pressure, it's going to bend the pipe.
I was doing nothing. I quit to take care of my parents in about 2014. And they both passed away in 17. Well, I did mostly nothing. I didn't renew my license because I didn't want to practice anymore. I couldn't physically. Then I just kind of laid around the couch, did nothing. And I heard about this from a friend and came out the opening day and haven't missed one yet. I feel rejuvenated. When I leave, if you come in feeling like 30%, you leave feeling 90%. It's a camaraderie that doesn't exist anyplace else because no one else understands.
To find out how to help Rob and the Combat Bike Saver community, visit combatbikesaver.org.
After a lifetime of service in the military, the question is often, now what? When we come back, we'll take you to Huntsville, where they are answering that question hundreds of times every year. Stay with us. For many military veterans, transitions in life can be hard. The transition to civilian life, the loss of a loved one, or the transition to retirement are all times when help is often needed, but also often not found.
But Alabama's Still Serving Veterans is helping, one step at a time.
In 2016, after 28 years in the Army, Lieutenant Colonel Mary De Silva was entering civilian life.
Once you get out of the military, it's like a totally different animal than what was explained to you.
Dealing with the recent loss of her spouse, caring for 3 children who were in or nearing college, and trying to adapt to a new world, she needed help.
Once I got my kids established in school, I was actually in Valdosta, Georgia. I didn't think that the city was big enough to, or didn't have the logistics background or place that I wanted to be in, and so I sought out different areas or places that was given to me when I exited out of the military.
Huntsville was on the list. De Silva connected with a veterans group who put her in contact with Still Serving Veterans.
Still Serving Veterans was originally designed and focused on accommodation for serious medical injuries.
Paulette Risher is the president and CEO of the organization.
As you continue to see what veterans need, it came that employment was the next thing. When people can take care of themselves and feed their families and feed their spirit and their souls, that life gets better. And that's where we started focusing on employment. And right now the employment mission is our primary mission.
For Mary De Silva, they accomplished that mission and so much more.
Of course, they do the handshakes, I got the hug.
The team at Still Serving Veterans helped her learn about the community and where she would best fit.
We were embraced because there was no one here that we knew. And so this was our family, and this is our family.
Over its existence, the mission of Still Serving Veterans has evolved, and it will continue to evolve. But the core value, helping veterans, will always be there.
And so by having people that have been through this and kind of know how this is done, really helps them a lot.
Hillary Simon, CBS 42.
If you know of a veteran in need of help getting access to the job, VA, or other information they need, just visit ssv.org.
And with that, we thank you for joining us tonight in honoring the veterans of Alabama.
And to the servicemen and women of our state, both past and present, we thank you for your service to Alabama and the nation. Good night.